500-year-old frozen mummy on the mountain of death that challenges human history. Hello, and welcome to the Ancient History Channel. My friends, have you ever wondered what would happen if the history of humankind that we have trusted for so long turned out to be only part of the truth? If there were ever an archaeological discovery powerful enough to send chills down scientists' spines, strong enough to force the entire academic world to re-examine what has long been considered established knowledge, then this is exactly the story we are about to explore today. It is a story that goes beyond mummies, touching the fragile boundary between science, belief, and the brutal consequences of ancient faith. And trust me, the deeper we go, the harder it will be to look away. In 1999, on the summit of Llullaillaco Volcano, one of the most extreme environments on Earth, rising to an elevation of approximately 22,110 feet above sea level, right on the border between Chile and Argentina, a team of archaeologists led by Dr. Johan Reinhard made a discovery that stunned the world. Amid relentless snow, freezing winds, and temperatures capable of killing a human being within minutes, they found three remarkably well-preserved child mummies, miraculously frozen for more than 500 years. These children were not nameless. Researchers gave them names tied closely to history. The oldest, a girl estimated to be between 13 and 15 years old, was named the Llullaillaco Maiden. A young boy, around 4 to 5 years old, became known as the Llullaillaco Boy. And a younger girl, whose story is no less tragic, was named the Lightning Girl. Among them, however, it was the Maiden, the adolescent girl, who left the scientific community truly astonished. When archaeologists opened the burial chamber, the Maiden was found sitting cross-legged, her head slightly bowed forward, her hands resting neatly in her lap, as if she had merely drifted into sleep. She wore a feathered headdress, her hair carefully braided. Surrounding her were offerings of gold, silver, finely woven textiles, and food containers, clear signs that she was no ordinary victim. But what truly left scientists frozen in disbelief lay inside her body. During examination, researchers discovered that the Maiden's internal organs were almost completely intact. Her brain was preserved. And astonishingly, there was still blood inside her heart. Yes, you heard that correctly. After more than 500 years, this mummy retained biological traces that should have disappeared centuries ago. Dr. Emma Brown, an archaeologist at the University of Bradford in the United Kingdom, described her reaction. The three children looked as if they had died only weeks or even hours earlier. When I looked at the girl's hands, her fingers still covered in skin and flesh, I genuinely felt chills. They looked no different from the hands of a living person. These may be the best preserved mummies ever found in the world. So what happened to these three children? According to researchers, they were victims of an ancient ritual known as capacocha, a sacrificial ceremony practiced by the Inca Empire, a civilization that once ruled vast regions of South America. The Inca believed that sacrificing pure children, especially young virgins, would appease the gods and protect the empire from natural disasters, disease, and supernatural forces. In Inca culture, girls who were chosen were separated from their families upon reaching puberty and placed under the strict supervision of priestesses. They were regarded as sacred beings. Yet for that very reason, their fate was decided early in life. On the day of the ceremony, the children were taken to the peaks of high mountains and left to succumb to the brutal cold. Ironically, these extreme natural conditions, sub-zero temperatures, thin air, and an arid environment, created a kind of natural deep freeze, preserving their bodies with extraordinary perfection for centuries. But the story does not end there. In 2012, scientists at the University of Bradford revealed an even more shocking discovery through the analysis of hair samples taken from the three mummies. The results showed that during the year leading up to their deaths, the children had been regularly given alcohol and coca leaves, the raw material used to produce cocaine. In particular, the Llullaillaco Maiden had consumed large amounts of alcohol in the final weeks before the sacrifice. Their diets also changed dramatically. Previously, they had eaten mostly potatoes and common vegetables. But once selected for sacrifice, they were fed corn, llama meat, and more nutrient-rich foods, a form of preparation for the sacred ritual. Dr. Andrew Wilson stated that the Maiden appeared to have been chosen approximately 12 months before her death. Compared to the other two children, she was better cared for, wore finer clothing, appeared calmer, and showed no signs of physical violence. Tragically, however, The very alcohol and cocaine given to her dulled her body's response to the cold, allowing death to arrive quickly and silently. In stark contrast, the Llullaillaco boy suffered a far more painful end. Evidence suggests he had been restrained. His clothing was stained with blood and vomit, clear signs of terror and extreme stress before death. This stands as undeniable proof that not all ancient rituals were as peaceful as they were once believed to be. Finally, scientists also discovered that the maiden suffered from a disease similar to tuberculosis. This finding raises new hope that ancient tissue samples like these could help modern medicine better understand the origins and potential treatments of certain diseases that still affect us today. But if you think the story of the Llullaillaco mummies is already disturbing enough, prepare yourself, because what comes next delves even deeper. Ahead of us lie even more mysterious archaeological discoveries, where every unearthed artifact has the potential to overturn everything humanity once believed to be true. So don't look away. Let's move on to the next discovery right now. 9,000-year-old human skull coated in bitumen mysteriously appear in the middle of the desert. Imagine this. In the middle of a barren desert, where sun and wind slowly erode everything over time, people suddenly discover intact human skulls that have existed for nearly 9,000 years. Not scattered bone fragments, not broken remains, but carefully preserved skulls, deliberately treated as if someone in prehistoric times had planned for us to see them today. How would that make you feel? I honestly can hardly imagine it myself. At times, I even struggle to believe it's real, and I think many of you might feel the same way. But this is not imagination. This discovery truly happened in the real world. The story begins at Nahal Himar, an archaeological sanctuary hidden deep within the Judean desert in southern Israel. This region is known for its extreme climate, dry, scorching, and nearly lifeless. Yet, paradoxically, these very harsh conditions became a kind of guardian of time, preserving organic artifacts that would have long since disappeared elsewhere. When archaeologists entered Nahal Himar cave, they discovered a total of 6 human skulls, all in relatively good condition. But what puzzled researchers most was this. Only 3 of the skulls had been carefully coated with bitumen. Radiocarbon dating revealed that these skulls date back to approximately 9,000 BCE, meaning they are nearly 9 millennia old. The extremely low humidity of the Judean desert prevented the bones from decomposing as they would in other environments. And the 3 skulls coated in bitumen were even more extraordinary. The bitumen layer not only preserved their shape, but also acted like a form of protective armor, shielding the skulls from environmental damage and the passage of time. According to detailed descriptions by the Israel Antiquities Authority, IAA, ancient people followed a very specific process when treating these skulls. First, a thin layer of bitumen was applied to the back of the skull. Then, pre-prepared strands of bitumen were layered on top, forming an interwoven net-like structure, resembling a kind of cap placed over the head of the deceased. Clearly, this was not a random act. It was a deliberate ritual, carefully planned and rich in meaning. So why were only 3 skulls treated in this special way? Scientists believe the answer is closely tied to ancestor worship during the Neolithic period. The individuals whose skulls were coated in bitumen may have been revered ancestors or people of exceptional importance within their community. They were not merely remembered for a single generation, but possibly venerated across many generations, becoming spiritual symbols for the entire group. Another hypothesis suggests something even more striking. These skulls may have served as symbols of land ownership. Around 9,000 BCE, Neolithic populations were rapidly increasing, leading to intense competition over territory. Preserving and venerating the skulls of ancestors may have been a way for a lineage to declare, "This land belongs to us, from our ancestors to the present day." Of course, this remains a hypothesis, and no one can say for certain. But if it is true, then the bitumen-coated skulls of Nahal Himar are not merely archaeological artifacts. They may represent the earliest evidence that humans possessed a deep awareness of power, territory, and ancestral identity thousands of years ago. And if that's the case, hasn't our understanding of ancient history just been fundamentally challenged? 34,000-year-old Ice Age. Woolly rhinoceros. Mummy that challenges everything. Science thought it knew. In 2015, in the frozen northeastern region of Russia, a discovery left both archaeologists and paleontologists completely stunned. From the seemingly lifeless layers of permafrost, researchers uncovered the body of a woolly rhinoceros dating back as far as 34,000 years. What made the find so astonishing was this: the animal's body was almost perfectly preserved, as if it had merely fallen asleep a few months ago, rather than lying frozen since the distant Ice Age. The rhinoceros was named Sasha, after the hunter who accidentally discovered it. From the very first moment, Sasha became one of the greatest mysteries of the prehistoric world. Unlike woolly mammoths, Ice Age animals that are frequently found in Siberian ice, ancient woolly rhinoceroses are extremely rare. As a result, our knowledge of this species remains very limited. Its place in the evolutionary chain, its diet, its lifespan, nearly everything about it is still surrounded by question marks. And Sasha, with a body preserved in near-original condition, is like a living time capsule, carrying the hope of helping scientists uncover long-forgotten chapters of natural history. At first, when the rhinoceros was removed from the ice, its appearance was dark gray, weathered and heavy, exactly what one would expect from a creature that had rested for tens of thousands of years. But the surprise came when scientists began the careful cleaning and restoration process. Beneath layers of frozen mud and ice, Sasha's original coloring gradually emerged, a distinctive reddish-brown hue. This detail shocked researchers, as it suggests that the fur of Ice Age rhinoceroses may have been far more complex and diverse than scientists had ever imagined. By analyzing Sasha's teeth, scientists determined that the animal was only about 7 months old at the time of death. Its fragile body measured approximately 4.9 feet in length and stood about 2.6 feet tall, a relatively small size compared to modern African rhinoceroses. What is even more remarkable is that modern rhinos typically require around 18 months to reach a similar size. This suggests that the growth rate and biology of ancient woolly rhinoceroses may have been significantly different from those of their modern descendants. Yet the more researchers studied Sasha, the more questions emerged. How did it die? What allowed its body to be preserved in such an astonishingly perfect state? Was it suddenly buried by ice and snow? Or did it perish in some kind of natural disaster during the Ice Age? To this day, no truly convincing answer exists. Paleontologists and geologists can agree on only one thing. Despite decades of studying the Ice Age, what we know is still just the tip of the iceberg. Discoveries like Sasha serve as powerful reminders that the ancient world holds countless secrets yet to be revealed. Each perfectly preserved animal is not merely a museum specimen, it is a vivid fragment of Earth's history. Sasha does not tell only the story of a single young rhinoceros, but also opens a doorway for science to better understand the climate, environment, and life of a harsh prehistoric era. And perhaps from this small rhinoceros mummy, humanity will one day piece together the complete picture of the Ice Age, a world that was wild, frozen, and unforgiving, yet endlessly fascinating, and one that continues to challenge everything we once believed to be certain. The world's oldest ancient mummy in the Chilean desert, revealing the chilling secrets of the Chinchorro people. Would you believe me if I told you that long before the Egyptian pyramids, before the rise of powerful pharaohs, there existed a culture that mastered mummification with a level of sophistication so advanced that even modern science is left in awe? What makes this even more unbelievable is that these people were not kings, not nobles, but simple hunter-gatherers living extraordinarily modest lives. If you find that hard to believe, then come with me to the Atacama Desert in Chile, the driest place on Earth, to encounter the mysterious mummies of the ancient Chinchorro people, mummies that seem to be quietly smiling at history itself. The Chinchorro lived along river mouths and coastal areas, relying entirely on the sea for survival. They fished using nets, spears, and hooks, and built mobile shelters made from sea lion skins and bones. Their society had no agriculture, no animal husbandry, no pottery, and no metalworking. At this point, many of you might be thinking, what could such a primitive community possibly have to do with advanced mummification techniques? I thought the same at first, but this is where the paradox begins. In the harsh environment of the Atacama Desert, the Chinchorro created mummies in a wide range of poses, lying down, sitting upright, some with skin and hair fully preserved, and some that even appear to be smiling. Certain faces were intricately reconstructed, and some mummies wore masks made from pelican skin. a material that still sounds astonishing even by today's standards. What is truly remarkable is that Chinchorro mummification practices lasted over 3,000 years, evolving through multiple phases before the culture disappeared around 2000 BCE. This means they began mummifying the dead thousands of years earlier than the ancient Egyptians. Unlike ancient Egypt, where only royalty and elites were mummified, the Chinchorro mummified everyone, regardless of age or social status. Infants, fetuses, and even animals and pets were treated with the same meticulous care as adults. In their worldview, death recognized no hierarchy. One common Chinchorro method involved natural dehydration. However, the key factor that allowed these mummies to survive for millennia was the extreme dryness and heat of the Atacama Desert. Temperatures could reach 122 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and the soil's high sodium content made bacterial growth nearly impossible. Bodies dried out rapidly, becoming naturally air-dried, preserving skin, hair, and even clothing. Scientists believe that accidentally witnessing bodies naturally desiccate in the desert may have inspired the Chinchorro to deliberately practice mummification. This became especially significant during a population boom around 7,000 years ago, when the growing community felt an increasing need to preserve the presence of the deceased. One mummy of a young boy was found wearing a mask and buried on a woven mat made of reeds. His internal organs had been removed and replaced with soil, while the exterior was coated with black manganese ash. Analyses of Andean plant fossils and radiocarbon dating suggest that this practice began to decline around 5,000 years ago. Some mummies are unforgettable, such as a face frozen in a smile, wearing a wig and coated in black ash, preserved for 5,000 years. This so-called black mummy style lasted for more than 2 millennia. Around 2800 BCE, the black pigment was replaced with red, possibly due to changes in spiritual symbolism or because black manganese became scarce. Adult and child mummies were sometimes separated by whale bones, likely indicating members of the same family. For the Chinchorro, mummification was not merely a ritual, it was a way for ancestors to remain physically present among the living, an inseparable part of everyday life. Researchers also believe that when someone died, the mummy may have been paraded around the village before burial. Reeds, ash, and natural adhesives were used to reinforce joints, and artificial skin was created from textiles. Some 2,000-year-old female mummies were found with masks made from burial cloth, rope, and pelican skin, details that reveal an almost unimaginable level of care. For children, the bond was even deeper. In life, infants were strapped to wooden frames so parents could carry them on their backs. And in death, this did not change. Here we see a 5,000-year-old child mummy secured to a wooden frame, clear evidence of the belief that death does not separate families. Today, many scientists believe that Chinchorro mummies and those of North Africa may have been similarly inspired by desert environments. It may be coincidence, or it may suggest that humans in different parts of the world arrived at the same profound question: how can life avoid completely disappearing after death? And it is that question which has left us with the oldest mummies in the world, lying silently in the desert, yet still telling their story after thousands of years. Exquisitely carved coffin from China's Tang dynasty. The main character was an ordinary elderly farmer who made his living growing vegetables. One day, as winter was approaching, he carried his shovel to a nearby field to dig a storage pit for cabbage, something farmers at the time did as routinely as eating a daily meal. The land had been cultivated for many years, so the soil was loose and easy to dig. Each shovel strike sent dirt flying effortlessly. Everything went smoothly, until suddenly, clang, the blade of the shovel struck something hard, producing a sharp metallic sound. Looking down into the hole, the farmer saw a fairly large cobblestone. Assuming it was just a natural rock, he didn't think much of it and continued digging. But the deeper he went, the stranger things became. More and more cobblestones appeared, packed so densely that the layer extended to about the height of a fully grown adult. And that wasn't all. Beneath the stones, he discovered a neatly arranged layer of bricks. Curious, he picked up a few bricks and froze. Their surfaces were covered with extremely intricate and unfamiliar patterns, unlike any bricks used for ordinary construction. At that moment, his instincts told him this was no ordinary find. Knowing that Zhangjiakou is a region with thousands of years of history, the farmer dared not dig any further. Instead, he immediately reported the discovery to the city's Cultural Relics Management Office. Before long, the Llullaillaco archaeological team arrived at the site. Even though night had already fallen, they worked urgently under artificial lights. And after only a short time, the experts reached a firm conclusion. There was an ancient tomb beneath the ground. The layers of cobblestones and bricks the farmer had encountered were, in fact, part of the tomb's protective structure. Once the overlying soil was carefully removed, archaeologists realized that this tomb was highly unusual. There was no entrance, no passageway, only protective layers above. This discovery both surprised and quietly delighted the team, because tombs of this type are rarely disturbed, meaning the chances of preservation were extremely high. Eventually, after removing the surrounding brickwork, a grand ancient tomb was revealed. However, when the coffin was opened, what lay inside surprised many people. There were no gold or silver treasures, no luxurious burial objects. Inside were only the ashes of the tomb's owner and 22 ancient coins. It was these coins that allowed experts to determine the tomb's age. It dated back to the Tang dynasty, which ruled China from 618 to 907 AD. And at this point, a shocking decision was made by a highly experienced senior archaeologist. He said, "Rebury the coffin and wait another 13 years. Hearing this, many people, perhaps like you, were stunned. But the reason he gave was extremely convincing. After careful examination, experts discovered that the wooden coffin had bonded tightly with the soil beneath it. With the technology available at the time, attempting to lift it would almost certainly have destroyed it. So, to protect this priceless relic, the archaeological team decided to return the tomb to its original state, covering it once again with cobblestones and bricks. And wait. And they truly waited. In 1985, exactly 13 years later, when technology and equipment had significantly improved, experts returned to the site. This time, they were able to lift the coffin safely to the surface without any damage. Today, this coffin is officially recognized as a Level 3 cultural relic of China and is preserved under strict protection. Despite extensive research, the identity of the tomb's owner remains a mystery. Yet the coffin itself has told future generations a rare story, one that reveals the extraordinary craftsmanship of Tang dynasty artisans, whose carvings are so refined and meticulous that they remain astonishing even today. All of this, awakened by a single accidental swing of a shovel. History, quite literally, was unearthed. Fascinating, isn't it? Underground city, nearly 2,000 feet beneath the Giza pyramids. For thousands of years, the world's gaze has remained fixed on the towering stone blocks of the Giza pyramids, the eternal symbols of ancient Egypt. Yet the most earth-shattering revelations may not lie above ground at all, but instead are gradually emerging beneath the surface, at depths reaching nearly 2,000 feet underground. Recently, a research team from Italy made a bold claim that stunned the international archaeological community. They assert that they have discovered a vast underground system beneath the Pyramid of Menkaure, a system which, according to them, not only challenges conventional understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization, but could potentially rewrite the foundations of human history itself. This discovery was made using ground-penetrating radar, GPR technology, which allows researchers to see through dozens of feet of rock and sand. What appeared in the resulting 3D subsurface maps were not simple cavities or natural caves, but an extensive network of corridors, stone pillars, and spiral shafts stretching hundreds of feet in length, structures strikingly similar in shape and scale to those previously reported beneath the Pyramid of Khafra, the neighboring and second-largest pyramid at Giza. Professor Riccardo Biondi, the lead researcher, stated, "We are 90% confident that this system truly exists, and if it does, it suggests that the pyramids are merely the visible surface of a massive infrastructure built during an entirely different era." According to Biondi, the team did not rely solely on radar imagery. They also conducted geological analyses of the area, compared stratigraphic structures, and incorporated data from earlier excavations that were either suspended or never widely published. One particularly shocking image released by the team depicts a massive spiral-shaped stone column, a form of architecture rarely seen and incompatible with any known ancient Egyptian construction style. This structure is believed to extend downward nearly 2,000 feet, far deeper than any underground construction ever documented in Egyptian archaeology. The team's claims go beyond scale alone. They have proposed a hypothesis suggesting that this underground system may be the product of a civilization that existed approximately 38,000 years ago, a timeline that far exceeds any date accepted by mainstream science for organized human civilization. Unsurprisingly, not everyone is prepared to accept such a dramatic upheaval. Zahi Hawass, one of the world's most prominent archaeologists and former Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, publicly rejected the claim. He described it as a hypothesis without scientific foundation, arguing that the Italian team's conclusions were reckless, based not on physical excavation but on interpretations of radar technology that is insufficiently reliable in an environment like the Giza Desert. Hawass, a long-standing defender of orthodox archaeological standards, has consistently opposed theories involving lost civilizations or prehistoric structures that fall outside the established framework of Egyptology. Nevertheless, the Italian research team continues to release data and imagery and has even proposed a theoretical model describing the underground system as an ancient ecological network. According to this model, natural elements such as water, earth, fire, and air may have been harnessed to sustain life or operate a mechanism that surpasses our current understanding. Notably, radar images reveal evidence of symmetrical chambers, ventilation corridors, and vertical shafts connecting the surface to unimaginable depths, all arranged according to sophisticated mathematical principles that align strangely well with the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. Some independent researchers have even linked this system to the concept of an Earth machine, an ancient device designed to interact with natural energies, not unlike how the ancient Greeks once created the Antikythera mechanism. If this underground system truly exists and is confirmed through future excavations, it could shake the very foundations of modern Egyptology, and more broadly, our understanding of human evolution. Are we truly the first advanced civilization, or did a highly sophisticated society exist before us? One capable of constructing colossal structures not only above ground, but deep beneath the earth like an immense subterranean labyrinth. Once such questions are raised, they cannot easily be dismissed. Although the scientific community remains deeply divided over this discovery, one thing is clear: the Pyramid of Menkaure, long believed to have been studied down to every last stone, still holds many secrets waiting to be uncovered, and perhaps beneath layers of dense sand and stone lies a doorway to a forgotten age, an era that history has not yet been ready to record. 2,500-year-old treasure emerges from the grasslands of Poland. Would you believe that beneath a peaceful field, where people think only of grass, livestock, and everyday sources of water, there could be a treasure thousands of years old hidden below the surface? This treasure did not begin with a dramatic excavation. There were no heavy machines, no large archaeological teams. Instead, it began in the simplest way possible, in a small village called Bartosz in Poland, on a freezing winter day in January 2025. That day, the son of a local farmer was clearing part of the field so the family's livestock could more easily reach their water source, a familiar task repeated year after year. But in that seemingly ordinary moment, he suddenly noticed a strange object embedded in the soil. It was a bronze necklace, broken cleanly into two pieces. At first glance, it did not sparkle like gold, nor was it intact. Yet something about it immediately felt unusual. Instinct suggested that this was no ordinary object. Realizing that it might be an ancient artifact, the farmer's family made a truly admirable decision. Instead of keeping it for themselves, they immediately reported the find to local authorities. After careful examination by experts, the conclusion left many people astonished. The necklace was determined to be approximately 2,500 years old. Even more remarkably, it is the only artifact from this historical period ever discovered in the Bartosz area. A rare find, nearly one of a kind. According to archaeologists, around 2,500 years ago, the world was standing at a major turning point. The Bronze Age was gradually giving way to the Iron Age, a period marked by dramatic changes in tools, technology, and social structure. The necklace was made entirely of bronze and features double-grooved circular patterns carved into its surface, indicating a surprisingly high level of craftsmanship for its time. Based on its age and historical records, many researchers believe the necklace may have belonged to the Hallstatt culture, a prominent early Iron Age culture in Europe, often associated with individuals of higher social status. However, not everyone agrees with this interpretation. Some experts argue that the necklace may instead be connected to the Kurgan culture, known for its nomadic communities and distinctive burial traditions. And this is where the story becomes even more intriguing. If it were merely an ancient piece of jewelry, the mystery might end there. But an artifact that could belong to multiple cultures, that dates precisely to a major historical transition, and that was found in such an unexpected location, clearly carries unanswered questions within it. At present, the necklace is undergoing in-depth study by specialists at the Institute of Archaeology at Nicholas Copernicus University in Torun. Every carved line, every trace of wear on its surface may serve as a clue, pointing to the people who once wore it, the land they lived on, and an entire era that passed more than 2 millennia ago. Once the analysis is complete, the necklace will be transferred to a museum for preservation and public display. And one day, you and I, lovers of history, may have the chance to stand before this small object and feel a tangible connection to humanity's distant past. Because every artifact is more than metal and form. It is a story lying dormant. And who knows? The 2,500-year-old necklace from Bartosz may be only the beginning of an even greater chain of discoveries, quietly waiting for humans to stumble upon them by chance. It's entirely possible. After all, the world is full of mysteries and wonders, don't you think? The mass grave of 796 children in Ireland reveals a terrifying truth from history. Hidden deep beneath the soil of a quiet garden in the town of Tuam, County Galway, Ireland, lies a historical secret that has shaken the conscience of an entire nation. After decades of being ignored, covered up, and buried, the truth surrounding the fate of 796 infants and young children, believed to have died under mysterious circumstances at a Catholic church-run institution, is finally coming to light. On Monday, archaeologists and forensic experts from around the world, including Colombia, Spain, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and the United States, officially began a large-scale excavation to search for traces of these children. These were fragile lives once buried without names in an area that had formerly been a septic tank, located right beside the playground of a mother and baby home. The excavation project is being led by Daniel McSweeney, a former special envoy of the International Committee of the Red Cross, who stated that this mission is both profoundly humanitarian and extraordinarily complex. The team's task is to sift through ancient underground sewage systems believed to be mass burial sites for hundreds of children, then carefully reassemble individual bone fragments in an attempt to reconstruct complete remains and, if possible, identify them. Early signs of the site's horrifying scale and nature emerged during test excavations conducted between 2016 and 2017, when scientists discovered the remains of children under the age of 3, including fetuses estimated to be around 35 weeks gestation. Ground-penetrating radar later revealed additional anomalies beneath the surface, likely mass graves, located in what was once a children's playground. The heartbreaking story dates back to 1925 through 1960, when Tuam served as a compulsory residence for thousands of unmarried pregnant women, individuals rejected by Irish society at the time and viewed as a shame to be hidden away. The institution was operated by the Bon Secours sisters, and over more than 3 decades, 796 children died there, according to death records painstakingly collected by local historian Catherine Corless. What is most disturbing is that no official burial records exist for these deaths, raising grave suspicions that many children were secretly buried in the septic system of the old facility, which had itself been built on the grounds of a famine-era workhouse. According to Corless, the truth cannot remain buried forever. She stated, "You can't put up a monument and say that's the end of it. You can't bless a place where such terrible wrongs were committed." Through relentless perseverance, she reignited the pursuit of justice for hundreds of families, many of whom lived in despair, never knowing whether their children had truly died or had been illegally sent away for adoption. Anna Corrigan, one of those with missing relatives from Tuam, said that her 2 brothers, one 7 months old and the other 13 months old, died there as infants, yet no one knows where they were buried. For Corrigan, the current excavation represents light at the end of a very long tunnel, though she remains cautious and uncertain about whether she will ever receive clear answers. DNA investigations are also underway. Samples from 14 relatives have already been collected, while approximately 80 others are waiting for the chance to participate in identification efforts. Items recovered during early excavations, such as diaper pins, enamel plates, and baby bottles, not only provide evidence of the children's harsh living conditions, but may also help date the remains. Experts are applying advanced technologies, including tooth enamel peptide analysis, to determine sex, age, and potentially even causes of death. While many in the community welcome the excavation as a necessary step toward confronting a dark chapter in national history, not everyone agrees. Some local residents argue that the dead should be left in peace and fear that disturbing the site will reopen old wounds. But for people like P.J. Haverty, who spent more than 6.5 years at the Tuam institution during his childhood and remembers it as a place of deep suffering, where mothers were allowed only brief moments to breastfeed and change diapers before being forced into hard labor, the excavation is wonderful, but it will not ease the anger. According to him, that anger will remain with survivors and families until they leave this world. Meanwhile, unresolved questions persist regarding the alleged falsification of death records to facilitate illegal adoptions to the United States. Corrigan poses a chilling question. Could they be living somewhere across the ocean, unaware that people in Ireland believe they are dead? With every shovel of earth turned and every small bone uncovered, the excavation at Tuam is not merely unearthing buried history. It is a confrontation with conscience, justice, and the collective memory of a nation. This is not just an archaeological journey, but a mission to restore dignity to the tiny souls once forgotten by the world. What would you think if the mystery surrounding these young remains were finally brought to light one day? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The immortal salt mummies of Iran. What would you think if I told you that there are people who died thousands of years ago, yet when they were discovered, they still had their hair, skin, beards, and even internal organs almost perfectly preserved? It sounds like something out of science fiction, doesn't it? But this astonishing reality lies deep beneath the ground of Iran, inside an ancient salt mine known as Cherabad. The Cherabad underground salt mine is located west of the city of Zanjan, in northern Iran. It is a massive mining complex that has been exploited by humans for thousands of years, and remarkably, its salt reserves have still not been exhausted to this day. However, what has made Cherabad famous worldwide is not the salt itself, but the ancient human remains preserved in an almost unbelievable state deep within the mine. Since 1993, miners working at Cherabad have repeatedly discovered mummified bodies dating back thousands of years. These remains are known by a very distinctive name, the Salt Men. Thanks to the mine's extremely dry, cold, and highly saline environment, the bodies have undergone almost no decomposition. Hair, skin, flesh, and bones remain intact, so much so that, at first glance, many people mistook them for the bodies of individuals who had died only recently. Even more chilling is the fact that in some of these mummies, internal organs that normally decompose very quickly, such as the stomach and intestines, are still clearly identifiable. This is extraordinarily rare in archaeology and has left scientists deeply astonished. The first mummy was discovered in 1993. It was the body of an elderly man with a long white beard. Beside him were an iron knife and a pair of gold earrings. Through analysis, scientists determined that this man died around 200 AD, but the discoveries did not stop there. In 2004, another mummy was found about 50 feet away from the original location. Then in 2005 and 2006, additional remains were uncovered, including the mummy of a teenage boy. In total, 6 mummies have been discovered in the Cherabad salt tunnels to date. Most remarkably, the oldest mummy found at the site has been dated to approximately 9,550 BC, meaning it is more than 11,000 years old. A figure that sends chills down the spine of anyone who hears it. As for their identities and causes of death, since all of the mummies are male, scientists believe they were likely ancient miners. It is highly possible that they were killed in accidents during salt extraction, or perhaps murdered, and were subsequently buried beneath thousands of tons of salt. This very process inadvertently turned them into natural mummies, preserved in near-perfect condition for millennia. Today, the first 4 mummies are on display at the Zanjan Archaeological Museum, while the 5th is preserved at the National Museum of Iran. The final Salt Man remains in the mine itself, as half of his body is still trapped within rock-hard crystallized salt, making removal nearly impossible. If you ever have the chance to visit Iran, Don't miss the opportunity to see these extraordinary salt mummies at the National Museum. They are among the most haunting and fascinating archaeological discoveries in the world. An 800-year-old penguin mummy in Antarctica. In one of the coldest places on Earth, where there is nothing but biting winds, endless white ice, and silence stretching across centuries, scientists suddenly discovered penguin bodies that looked as if they had died just yesterday. Not in a museum, not inside a laboratory, but right in the vast wilderness of Antarctica. This story is not fiction. It is a real scientific discovery that has forced biologists to re-examine an entire chapter of penguin history and the climate history of our planet. The central figure in this discovery is biologist Stephen Emsley. During a research expedition in the Ross Sea, Antarctica, he uncovered the remains of ancient Adelie penguins, a species famous for its waddling walk and extraordinary ability to survive in extreme icy conditions. What made the discovery remarkable was how incredibly well-preserved these remains were, despite their great age. The story began 4 years earlier, when Emsley was conducting fieldwork at Cape Irizar, located along the Ross Sea. There, he noticed something unusual: large piles of pebbles stacked together, identical to the nests Adelie penguins typically build for breeding. What made this strange was that the area today is completely devoid of any penguin colonies. Upon closer inspection, Emsley found penguin remains scattered across the site. Most were heavily decomposed chicks, but mixed among them were individuals that appeared to have died only recently. This contradiction raised a troubling question: what had really happened here? Today, the Ross Sea is home to nearly 1 million breeding pairs of Adelie penguins. Yet at Cape Irizar specifically, penguins have completely disappeared since the early 20th century, when explorer Robert Falcon Scott first documented their presence. This mystery pushed Emsley to search for answers. Radiocarbon dating later confirmed his suspicions. These penguin remains were indeed ancient. Scientists identified 3 distinct periods during which Adelie penguins had lived in this area. The earliest dates back about 5,000 years, while the most recent colony disappeared roughly 800 years ago. According to Emsley, the period between 4,000 and 2,000 years ago was ideal for Adelie penguins. During that time, temperatures were warmer than today, and the marine environment was rich in nutrients, allowing penguin populations to thrive. However, conditions later worsened as snow accumulation and sea ice increased. This not only forced the penguins to abandon the area, but also unintentionally buried and preserved the bodies of those that had died. The most surprising part of this discovery is why these penguin mummies are now being exposed. The answer lies in global warming. Since the 1980s, temperatures in the Ross Sea region have risen by approximately 2.7 to 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, causing ice and snow to melt and reveal remains that had been buried for centuries. As a result, this discovery tells us more than just a story about penguins. It serves as a powerful reminder of climate change. Antarctica is slowly revealing its past, and with every layer of ice that melts, another piece of history is brought back into the light. As you can see, beneath every layer of soil, every stone, and every field that seems ordinary at first glance, there may be hidden traces of ancient tragedies, strange rituals, or unexplained deaths from thousands of years ago. From perfectly preserved mummies, hastily buried human remains, to artifacts stained with blood and tears, these are all whispers from the past reaching into the present. They send chills down our spines, yet they also force us to listen, to confront the truth of how our ancestors once lived, what they believed in, what they feared, and what they were willing to sacrifice. Archaeology is not just about digging through dirt and stone. It is about digging deep into the memory of humanity itself. And who knows, perhaps as soon as tomorrow, another discovery will emerge and once again leave the world in shock. If that happens, would you dare to walk with us into the unburied mysteries of history? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any other remarkable discoveries. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.